Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program at the crossroads of religion and life, a series highlighting the cultural and social interaction between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTVC. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue. There was a commercial that asked the question, how do you spell relief? Now in Austin, in regard to seniors, that's spelled R-E-S-P-I-T-E. Respite. Seniors Respite Services. And we have with us today people that can give us insight into that relief. Hello, I'm Richard Thompson, pastor of Central Presbyterian Church and your host for today's program. And I'm pleased to have sharing with us in this topic today two of the officers of this particular organization. We have Jody Welburn, president of the board of directors of the Seniors Respite Service and retired UT law instructor, and incidentally a full-time mom. We have as well Frances Johnson, the vice president of the organization and the board of directors, formerly a lay Christian education worker in the Episcopal Church, and since coming to Austin, a caregiver for her mother and an active volunteer in aging programs. And I would like to start with you, Frances, because I think that your particular need with your mother gives us a sense of what this service may be about. Could you give us a little history of your own experience?
Yes. My mother came to live with us about 5 years ago. She had gotten to the point where the doctor said she could no longer live alone, and we knew that day was coming, so she came. She was very, very mentally confused, but still, you know, able to do many, many things for herself. There was no need for her to be in a nursing home at that point. And it was just about this time that the service was beginning, and I saw an advertisement for it, and I read it, but I really didn't think I would use it. Mm-hmm. When you have a very frail older person, you're very, very hesitant to think that anyone else could take care of them and give them the kind of care you can give them. Right. Because you know all their little idiosyncrasies and peculiarities and what have you. Mm-hmm. But finally, after a few months, I realized that my husband and I needed some time away from this situation, that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week could wear you down. I had vastly overestimated my powers. Not only that, sometimes you just need to go out and shop, go to the doctor for yourself. You know, there are a number of
take care of your own needs.
You cannot leave a frail person alone who might, if they're handicapped, might fall. In my case, I was afraid my mom would wander away. Mm-hmm. And there's no way that she would have been able to tell anyone who she was or where she should belonged or how to get home or any of that. So I finally called the service, and they came out for the interview and sent a sitter to stay with her. And it was a little touchy, too, because, you know, I was afraid, how would she react to having this person come in? So the way I got around that was to tell her that it wasn't as much for her as it was for me.
Oh, I see.
Because what if something happened to me mm-hmm. and my husband on, you know, while we were out? Somebody would need to be here to sort of know what to do.
And that made sense to her.
That kind of made sense to her, and she accepted that. Over time, she would still kind of raise her hackles about, you know, having someone come, but the minute that person came to the door, and even though she had a pretty severe memory loss, she remembered her companions, and she liked them. And bless those people, I don't know how many thousands of games of dominoes they played, but they played many, many, many games of dominoes and watched lots of television, whatever. Just they really tried to have a nice time with her. And you know, one of the benefits, I think, for her was that it gave her another face to look at, because she too was trapped.
Right, right.
You know?
Well, I think that your story is the kind of personal touch that gives what may just be an agency's name character and flavor and color. And I think in terms of your connection to it, Jody, it wasn't through a personal family need of this sort, but something else?
No, it was just my interest in working with the elderly. At the time, I was doing volunteer work at a nursing home and just had friends who were older and wanted to get involved, and was invited by these good people to come help, to be on the board. And at the time, the agency was new and was struggling to find its legs, and it was exciting to be part of it as it was coming together.
So you happened to get in on it at the ground level in terms of its organization?
Just about. The agency had been organized for a little over a year when I joined the board, and this is my 4th year on the board of directors.
Let's stand back from Austin just for a moment and see if you can give us a perspective of are there other communities elsewhere in the nation doing this? Are we following a pattern elsewhere, or are we pioneering in this regard?
We feel like we're pioneering. We know that there are other respite care organizations and agencies. We don't know that there's any that provides the same unique services that we provide. We know that we are unique in the state of Texas, and we know that we're unique in the city of Austin.
I see. So Austin is the only city in Texas that's got this kind of service
This
going?
particular kind of service.
Yeah, I think that's true.
All right. Now, what about the, in terms of the kind of services that are offered? You mentioned like a sitter or companion is the heart of it. How many of these people are available to render that service?
We have 50 people, 50 sitter companions on staff, and who are available to be called when a family needs help and needs to get away. We have to be careful about the kind of activities that the sitter companions can and cannot do according to law, because we are not a home health care agency, and we're not licensed to do nurse or nurse's aide type activities. And what some families have done, in fact, is have hired a nurse or nurse's aide to come in for a short period of time, perhaps an hour or so, to help the elderly person with their physical therapy or their medicine or whatever other kind of activity that our sitter companions cannot do, and then use our sitter companions the rest of the time, because we do have a sliding fee scale that's based on the family's ability to pay, and so we're substantially less expensive than a nurse or a nurse's aide.
Or a commercial operation?
Yes.
The other thing is, you don't always need that really sophisticated health care. You just need someone to be there so that you can get away and have some recreation.
Right.
Part of our mission is to ensure that no elderly person is left alone in Austin if they don't want to be alone. And older people left alone are at risk. And
there have been some real tragedies in this town in the last 2 or 3 years, and that just tears us up, because we feel like if those families had known about us, that might not have happened.
All right. Well, I'm needing again to get your help in terms of a broader view, like how great is the need in Austin for this kind of care, and how close to you are you to meeting it in terms of 50 people trained to do this kind of work?
we presently have about 200 families on our client family rolls, and we have had over the years, this is our 5th year of operation, over 400 families that we've served. We don't really know what the need is.
Hard to get a fix on that.
It's hard. We're doing our best to, like being on programs such as this, to do outreach, to publicize the service, and to let the people who potentially need the service know that we exist. But I'm always surprised at the number of people who come up to me after a speaking engagement or after a meeting and say, I had no idea. I'm so glad to know you're here.
Right. Just in order to make sure that we don't get through the program without providing some vital information, I think we have a number that can be shared with the viewers here in that respect. And I think that let's just take somebody calls you and says, I heard you. We could use your services for sure. And you have given us one example, Francis, in terms of your mother. Give us another example that you know about of how a typical day would go for someone that's using the services and what the caregiver would provide.
So why don't you tell them about that family?
Well, as you say, let me start at the very beginning.
All
If
right.
somebody first calls the service because they think that we might be able to help them, our executive director will make a home visit. And at the home visit, she will meet the family and spend some time talking to the family about their needs and when they need to be away, and also the elderly person's needs and how frail they are and how mentally capable they are, so that when the executive director tries to find a sitter companion, she can match a sitter companion with that family and that family's needs. And after the family calls and the home visit is set up and the executive director has made the home visit, it might be a week at the longest before the family would start receiving the service. And families can use the service almost as often or as seldom as they need. Some families use the service on a regular basis and they invite the same sitter companion to come twice a week or once a week. Other families only use the service on an as-needed basis, if they have a doctor's appointment or if they're going out to the movies or if they need to go away for the weekend. And we do offer the service on a 24-hour basis and have reduced rates for 24-hour visits.
All right, well, let's just focus there for a moment in terms of the number of hours, the maximum number of hours that, I mean, if somebody says, here, take over, you know, full time.
We go back to the word respite on that we're a respite care agency. We're here to help people handle the burden, to give them some time off. We're not here to take the burden. And because we're nonprofit, we really couldn't do that. We will offer 25 to 30 is the outside limit of the number of hours per week that we can offer.
And that might be stretching it a bit in terms of the number of caregivers that you have and the number of people that need the service.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the sliding scale. What's the low end of that and the top end of it?
$3 is the low end, and $8 is the top end. And it's based on income. And
that's less than would be paid for some home care available through a commercial business.
Yes. We're trying to help catch those people who sort of fall between the cracks, you know. They don't necessarily qualify for any kind of maybe medical government support or something, although I'm not sure anybody does for this kind of care in any case. But and those people who could afford to go to a for-profit agency. I think ours has some advantages over those in any case, but there are people who might prefer to go that. But there are a lot of people who are just sort of in the middle there. And we just really don't want any frail elder person to ever be left alone. That's our goal. That's our goal. Because a frail elder alone is a person at risk.
Do you get any help from the city or government agencies of any sort?
Indeed we do. The city and the county give us some grant money.
Okay, so I mean, is most of your budget made up from public funds or just supplemented by
it's a
that?
very small percentage of the entire budget. Since we charge for the service, we do receive fees from the families, and that's a substantial part of our budget. And then we get the money from the city and the county, and we get private donations. And that's part of our outreach and our responsibility as board members is finding those
to help
donations.
raise funds for that. Right. What kind of support do you get from the religious community?
Do you want to answer that? We get pretty good support.
Pretty good support, I would say.
We have gotten grants from Austin, it's not Austin Metro Ministries.
No,
It's
not
there's
Austin.
now Austin Metropolitan
Metropolitan
Ministries,
Ministries,
which
yes.
is the sponsor of this
Yes.
program. So
Yes. And
I'm
we've
glad to hear
gotten,
that.
yeah, we've gotten funding from the diocese of the Episcopal Diocese of Texas
Mm-hmm.
through their outreach program, and churches have been very willing to let us come and talk, tell their people about this. One of the problems is, this is the kind of service that you can hear about and forget about until suddenly you need it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you wish you could remember.
Mm-hmm.
What was that I heard about?
Right. Till it hits you, then
Yeah.
you're looking for the lead as to how to get in
Right.
touch. And I think that you're out north of town in terms of your location. Whereabouts exactly is your office?
We're actually central. We're
Yeah.
just a little bit north of the university.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the Austin Groups for the Elderly building, which is a unique coalition of nonprofit agencies that have as their primary focus working for the elderly.
AGE. They
And AGE.
go by their
exactly.
abbreviation. Uh-huh.
But our sitters are from all over, and when we try to match up sitters with families, geography is taken into account as well, so that the sitters probably will come from an area not too far from where you are.
Mm-hmm.
which-
Now, how do you come by sitters, and who are these folks?
Well, a lot of them are either retired or widowed, older women. We have one man right now, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to have a lot more men. We would
Mhm.
really like to have some men, because it's awfully hard for the frail men of our society to have contact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we advertise periodically when we know we're going to need to have a training session, and these people come and they're interviewed, and they go through the training, and they have to go through some hands-on work. And we haven't turned very many down, but we have turned a few down who were viewed as being unsuitable and not really quite right for the work.
Mm-hmm. So they have to pass a bit of a test in order to
That's right.
qualify.
And I was nothing but happy with the people that came to us. And what was so wonderful to me was that here were, in many cases, women who had sort of found themselves adrift. They were too old to either want to work full-time all the time, or to even perhaps have a chance at employment.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them didn't have a great many marketable skills, and they needed to feel like they were doing something important.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew when that family walked away
Uh-huh.
and came back that they had done something important.
Right.
They felt it.
No question about the value
Yeah.
of that.
And they sort of become almost appendages to the family. It's really
Mm.
Several
a very-
families have said
yeah,
that their
yeah.
sitter companion now is like a member of their family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to the church support that,
Mm.
and I'd like to go back to that subject,
All right.
because I see this service as a wonderful example of lay ministry,
Mhm.
of one woman's dream and the Spirit of the Lord working in one woman to
Mhm.
affect hundreds of people's lives. And
Who's the one woman?
her name is Marion Todd, and she is now secretary of our board of directors. But she organized the agency 5 years ago
Mhm.
when she moved her own mother in with her. And her mother at that time was 84 and was quite frail, couldn't be left alone for any period of time. And Marion soon discovered, as Frances did, that she needed some time off from the responsibility. She needed to be able to go out with her husband occasionally. And she was tired and fearful of relying too much on friends and people from church.
Mhm.
And when she investigated what was available in Austin, she found that there were the home health care agencies that were too expensive for her, and the adult daycare. And she did use the adult daycare for a short period and found that it was wonderful, that her mother thoroughly enjoyed going and visiting with other people. But when her mother became too frail to move, then again she was left with no alternative. And sort of in the American entrepreneurial spirit, she got together some volunteers and organized this business that just happens to be a nonprofit business. And she advertised for sitters and advertised families, and the service began with 7 sitter companions and 12 families back in 1984. And we now have, as I said, 50 sitter companions and over 200 families on the roll. And it's because of Marion and her vision to try to address a problem.
Right, and the fact that it's grown that quickly, I think, is an indication of just something of the depth of the need in the community.
Well, the demographics would suggest that it's just going to escalate. I mean, it's going to go nowhere but up.
Now, these sitter companions don't work for free. They're not donating their time.
No.
Are you paying a minimum wage sort of thing for that service? Is it?
No, we pay them above the minimum wage.
All right.
We do this very purposefully because it means that we have a right then to demand a professional attitude from them. And in fact, they respond in that way.
Yes.
As far as I know, we have never had any problem with people not showing up, with lateness.
Theft or
If
any
anything,
of the things
ours
that people are really fearful about letting a stranger into their home.
Right.
We have not had those problems, and we're real proud of that we have this core of caring, devoted, honest, wonderful people to rely
They're really
on.
very special.
Well, I think that it's a special work in its totality. The fact that it's unique in Texas, the fact that it's meeting a need that would not be met in quite the same way. I mean, there are other services, but that it's on a sliding scale, and that it's got even though these people get paid, it's, I'm sure, a work that's done out of caring and compassion, probably even more than for the money. And but I think that there's just one other aspect of it that I thought about when you mentioned that this is housed with other services for the elderly in town. AGE, which stands again for?
Austin Groups for the Elderly.
Okay. Plural, groups. This is one among several groups. Just to give us a perspective, how many groups are housed in that? Is on 38th Street?
It's at the corner of 38th and Cedar Streets.
Okay.
It's the old Confederate Widows' Home of Texas.
Okay.
That's been converted. And the truth is, I am not sure exactly how many. I think there are about 15 different agencies. They include Family Elder Care and Lutheran Social Services. There's an adult daycare center there. There's a Meals on Wheels program there. The Advocate, which is a newspaper that's devoted to issues affecting the elderly.
I think the Alzheimer's group is in there.
And the extent to which there's a kind of consortium of groups under this umbrella, that you're not interconnected other than sharing the same facilities. I presume that that's the relationship. But the fact that you've got even that in Austin is a sign to me that this community has got some an especially caring population. And that this could grow so large not only attests to the need, but also to those ready to respond to that need.
Exactly. Well, and again, I have to say that this goes back to one woman's vision, and that woman is Bert Kruger-Smith, who is presently the president of the board of directors of AGE. And it was her idea to get all these agencies together and to see if we could to raise the money to buy this building so that the agencies would not have to pay rent and could focus on their work, but yet have this cooperative, coordinated environment. And
so that you've named 2 people that were kind of at inspiration at the beginning. And the other one was earlier on?
Marion Todd, who's the founder of this particular agency.
All right. So the umbrella organization was Mrs. Smith's
Bert
conception.
Kruger-Smith, yes.
But Family Elder Care was Jackie Lalonde's. I mean, when you look at work among the elderly in Austin, you look at a lot of pioneering work. People that saw a need. West Austin Caregivers Started the same way.
You know what impresses me about Austin is the mix of folks. And you've got a lot of retired people here. I mean, Austin is a good place to retire. It attracts people from other parts of the country to come here. But you've also got a number of younger people related to the university, and I think the town attracts that younger group. And it seems to me that my guess is that you might have some of the younger people involved in this. You're an example of that?
Yes, we have, our board is an example of just what you're talking about, that there's just a cross-section of ages and backgrounds and people from the community who are all working together, who all have the same vision.
You're a mom? How old are your children?
My girl is 11 months.
11 months.
Just started walking.
Okay, well, I was going to say, has she ever been involved in the program, but I said it's a little early yet for that.
Yes.
But I would think that children's role in this, as time goes along, could also be significant. And at least she'll know what you're doing and appreciate that. And I'd like to also indicate that I think the folks who are looking in today will appreciate the information that you give and the inspiration that you give. I mean, you're here as volunteers yourself, as members of the board. And so I'd like to thank you both for spending this time with us.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
And would like to thank you, the viewers, for sharing the time. And at the top of the program, you know, I said, how do you spell relief? And I said R-E-S-P-I-T-E. I asked now, how do you spell respite? And I would say it's C-A-R-I-N-G. I'm Richard Thompson, pastor at Central Presbyterian Church, thanking you for watching. Be with us next week on Austin Faith Dialogue. Peace be with you.